coming up this afternoon. Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice pens a letter to the Inspector General of Police, amongst many things, raising objections to the police's handling of the rights of the ordinary Ghanaian to protest. Shraj says the manner in which the police enforces the Public Order Act makes for worrying concern. Also, this afternoon, coalition of civil society organizations, including CDD, Kodeo, and IDE, call for resignation of two EC commissioners who they describe as partisan to engender trust ahead of the 2024 general elections. We're live to that news conference shortly if you stay with us here on 3FM 92.7. And much later, 3 labor unions of all public universities have threatened to withdraw their services on October 15th if government fails to restore the allowances owed them for 6 months. Kolebu Teaching Hospital, meanwhile, has backtracked on the increment in the cost for renal dialysis after public backlash. We have details of these stories, a lot more, if you stay with us for the next 30 minutes. A pleasure that you could be a part of this afternoon's bulletin. Is streaming live on Facebook. Our handles 3FM927. Same handles on Twitter as well. 3FM927. I am Eric Mawuena Egbeta. Let's settle for the details. And this afternoon, the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice is baring its teeth at the Ghana Police Service over what it says is the worrying mode of enforcing the Public Order Act. According to Shraj, the police's response over the years to protesters have been disproportionate and leaves much to be desired. The police service has come under heavy criticism following the handling of some 56 demonstrators during the first day of the 3-day Occupy Julobi protest. The result of the criticism has been a query served on the Accra Regional Police Command by the police hierarchy to answer questions over the handling of the protesters. In the 5-page open letter, Shraj is demanding the police to review its processes in dealing with protesters to engineer trust. Let's walk you through that 5-pointer statement where, amongst many things, the police is being advised by Shraj, and amongst many things, we're going to be engaging private legal practitioner Martin Pebu on this particular subject as well. But let's walk you through some of the reasoning by Shraj, who are raising concerns over this particular matter. They say the basis for the police action, as the Commission understands, was that it has served some court processes on the lawyers of the leadership of the protesters and therefore considered any attempt to undertake the protest as unlawful, hence giving rise to arrest and detention. The Commission sadly notes the police's response over the years against protesters have been disproportionate and leaves much to be desired. It is in this context, the Commission deems it appropriate as a national human rights institution with a mandate to promote and protect human rights under the Constitution and its obligations under the Paris Principles to ensure an advisory to relevant state actors on matters like these. There are pointers and recommendations Shraj makes to the Ghana Police Service. The first is that the Ministry of Interior, Inspector General of Police, and National Security Ministry must be mindful of Ghana's human rights obligations towards its citizens. They say that the appreciation of this obligation will, amongst many things, inform decisions in striking a good balance between all legitimate competing interests. They add that the police and the relevant state agencies must develop guidelines for managing protests which incorporate human rights standards for use by law enforcement officials. They are asking or demanding refresher courses on human rights and other relevant UN and AU standards. In situations of deadlock between law enforcement and protesters, the decision to resort to the court to injunct the exercise of the right must be done in a manner which affords protesters the opportunity to challenge the decision in the court of law. I mentioned we'll engage private legal practitioner Martin Pebu. He's joined us on the telephone line this afternoon for a conversation. Many thanks, counsel, for speaking to us this afternoon. You and some others had raised concerns as to the mode in which the police handled the Democracy Hub protesters. Now we've seen this open letter advice from the Commission of Human Rights and Administrative Justice. Some say not surprising, and that the police really should be taking a cue from this.
Okay, yes. Mawuena, what Shraj has done is the right thing. It's good Shraj is speaking up. You see, as he rightly pointed out, it's part of their mandate to promote human rights. So as part of the promotion, they can also give an advisory opinion. You see it? Yes. So what we do is that we have to hail Shraj for coming out. It's good. I'm sure right now with this, it will be clear to the police council and IGP that the whole of Ghana, of course, has shown that we don't appreciate what happened at all. That's putting it very mildly. So they have to do the needful. You see how Shraj has made some recommendations talking about further training and all the other suggestions. So it's the right thing. It's the right thing that Shraj has done. It's good because it tells you, you see, Ghana is changed though. Look, Mawuena, you see that Ghana is changed. It's neither about NPP nor NDC. As for the two of them, we're already tired about them. Okay, we'll leave that for another day. But the thing is that we have a country to build. So we can't continue looking at national issues just in NPP and NDC lenses so that you say, oh, if I come out and speak, I'll be branded. Or if I come out and speak, I will not get any further government jobs, no government contracts, etc. So Mr. Whittal is done well. That's how come me have even supported the call that for this independent constitutional body, what we have to do is that we take away the powers of the president to appoint those persons. Did you hear? Let me just bring in this. Did you hear the Chief Justice address other judges telling the president that they want financial independence? It's good. It's good we bring this into the context. It tells you that independent constitutional bodies are talking. Chief Justice telling the president that they want financial independence. It's an open secret that government has been muzzling them over the years, that some of them would not want to speak about it because they'll say, oh, diplomacy, etc. This is not the first time the Chief Justice is speaking about constitutional reforms. At her vetting, she said she doesn't want the president to have anything to do with the discipline of judges, etc. Because, you know, the Superior Court judges, if you want to remove a judge, it has to go through the president, EC, it has to go to the president. You see the last EC petition to remove the EC, that the president sat on it. Right. So eventually Oliver Barker, Vomawe had to withdraw the petition. There are other petitions that the president sat on, etc. So the context is that independent constitutional bodies are talking, and it's good. We will no longer be cowed by, oh, if you speak, you'll be branded as NDC because NDC is on opposition. So it's a good thing that Shraj is done. Let's laud Shraj. So it means that hopefully this matter will go again into the Saturday programs across the country. Then we'll address it again and again because we are pushing back the police. Pushing back the police that will not take such unconstitutional conduct from them.
Just briefly on another points they make about the interpretation of the Public Order Act. They've in their recommendations asked for the striking of good balance, but the jury could still be out there that in striking that good balance, the challenge of interpretation, which has been raised by Shraj, could still come up where they will still find ways and means to curtail the rights of individuals wanting to go on peaceful protest.
Yes, as for the likelihood, you can't totally pump it out. That is how come we are all speaking out. So you see the police themselves announce that they are going into, let me call it for lack of a better word, conclave. They are meeting, they are trying to come up with new, SOP, standard operating measures and the rest. And of course, let's quickly remind them, in doing the standard operating measures, they shouldn't forget that we don't need live bullets at protest grounds, at demonstrations. They should get the projectiles. If the rubber bullets are thick, now they use the IEPs, the projectiles, right? Yes, so that those ones, they are soft, they are made of cloth, so they hit the person They will just make the person uncomfortable. They won't pierce the person, won't wound the person with big injuries likely to cause death, because some rubber bullets cause that. So they should remember to add that, because even though this time in the arrest there were no shootings, but I know that very often there are shootings and injuries.
Right.
Yes. So the police say they are going to come up with some SOPs. They should do. And when they are done, they should invite us to come and read through and give them feedback.
Right.
So it's good. It means that they are listening, and that's what we need for development.
Right then, Counsel. I appreciate that you could speak to us this afternoon.
You're welcome.
That's private legal practitioner Martin Pebu speaking to us. There's been other reactions to this. Mahama Ayariga as well as Boko Central MP. He's been reacting to this. Remember, they have a protest come October 3, Occupy BOG. Let's just hear briefly what he told Johnny Hughes on 3FM Sunrise.
I believe that this advisory should be seriously considered by the police so they can review their practices and the way that they engage around the questions of demonstrations and public protests. And I believe that the protesters will begin to see the police as allies, will listen to them, will engage them constructively. For instance, when they invited us to the meeting,
That's Boko Central MP Mahama Ayariga was switching attentions from this, and a coalition of civil society organizations have underscored the need for the two EC commissioners who they describe as partisan to immediately resign. The coalition, made up of bodies such as CDD Ghana, Kodeo, IDEG, among others, argue that their resignation will ensure that trust in the EC is protected. Speaking at a CSO roundtable discussion in Accra, Director of Advocacy and Policy Engagement at CDD Ghana, Dr. Kojo Asante Pumpuni, called on the appointees to view their resignation as a sacrifice to protect the country's democracy.
That Kodeo has looked at, if that option is not there, but I think we will say that is their sacrifice that they can make to Ghana. For me, that's the way I look at it. If they appreciate where we are coming from, I think that will be done. And I think the government can find other places, that they could easily serve. It is not about their competency and their capacity. I'm sure there are many other places where they can serve fully and without all that implication that we have for our elections. We also talk about continuing to appeal to the EC, but as I said, the EC process is almost done. So, and even the court cases have not been heard, so I don't know what effect that will have. Strengthening communication strategy to provide continuous comprehensive.
That's Dr. Kojo Asante Pumpuni. Duke Menso Poku is at that engagement. He joins us with a bit more detail. Duke, first off, let's remind listeners who these two individuals are and why they become the subject of a call for resignation.
Thank you, Mawuena. So the commissioners in question are Dr. Apia-Hene, who's been appointed as a commissioner, and Hajia Salima Tijani. Dr. Apia-Hene, after his appointment, it emerged that he was associated with the New Patriotic Party at the University of Energy and Natural Resources in Sunyani. Similar comments have also been made about the appointment of Hajia Tijani Salima. So these are the persons in question, and these are the individuals that today the coalition of CSOs who presented their assessment in the run-up to the 2024 election as the topmost issue that they think may have an impact on the 2024 election is the continuous membership of these people who they describe as partisan characters on the Electoral Commission. So those are the individuals concerned, Eric.
But bold call, some will say, this demand or request on them to resign. Is it the case that now these CSOs have been able to substantiate the claims as well that yes, they are affiliated to the governing party, hence blur the line in terms of the independence of the Electoral Commission?
Well, the concern they are raising is that these individuals should know that the appointments would rather sort of break down the trust that persons have in the Electoral Commission. They have not, and that they shouldn't see it as a dent on their competence or their integrity or whatever, but as the ultimate sacrifice we made to restore the country, or for want of a better way, to ensure that the trust in the country's democratic process and the Electoral Commission, for that matter, is held intact. So they've not presented any new information. They're just acting on or speaking out of the earlier information that was put in the public domain, based on which the NDC petitioned the Council of State, and the Council of State responded that they did not really have a lot to do with these appointments. So that's about it now.
Right then, Duke, I appreciate that you could provide those details. Duke Mensah-Opoku is my colleague at that roundtable CSO discussion on elections here in the country who are making that demand. You're listening to the news here on 3FM 92.7. We're switching lanes to Labour because 3 Labour unions of all public universities have threatened to withdraw their services come October 15 if government fails to restore the allowances owed them for some 6 months. We'll take you to the news conference shortly, but let's hear from spokesperson of the group as they made the demand.
This has rendered many pensioners and those who are yet to retire helpless in accessing their benefits. How do you expect someone who has worked in the public university for 22 years to retire with a lump sum of 2,400 Ghana cedis as their take-home? Again, overtime allowances to security staff and some identified staff of the public universities, of some public universities like UMass and UCC, have been denied since July 2022. All these things, when they add up to what the issues are, the issues that are happening on the ground, make people agitated, and that is why we are bringing them on board in this reference. So all efforts to have those overtime allowances restored have proven futile. And meanwhile, security staff in other sister universities who are doing the overtime are being paid their fixed overtime, and except these universities which we have mentioned here. The unions front wish to use this medium to request management of the universities and government agencies to restore these withheld allowances. It would be in the interest of peace and progress of our universities that these restorations are urgently addressed. We would add that since this press invitation went out, the Deputy Minister of Finance reached us.
So that's the spokesperson of the group, Evelyn Tengma, is at that news conference. Evelyn, let's first start with identifying the labor groups and what allowances specifically, because we hear overtime and the likes.
Yeah, right, Mawuena. So the associations are Ghana Association of Universities Administrators, Tertiary Education Workers Union Ghana, and Senior Staff Association Universities of Ghana. And these are members who are non-teaching staff. Apart from the lecturers, the university lecturers,
persons in administration,
staff, they come under the public university. And so you can imagine how important their services are. You talk about the laborers, you talk about the administrators, you talk about the security and all that. So these are very important people. Apart from the lecturers, if they should lay down their tools, and the university will grind down to a halt. And so their demands really is that they're asking government to restore their car maintenance allowance, off-campus allowance, and overtime allowances. And basically, these are the allowances that they're asking government to restore, that they have gone into a contract or an agreement with government over the years, and this has not been fulfilled from government. So they're asking that government restores all these allowances for them, or on the 15th of October, they will strike. Mawuena.
Right, just briefly, before we came to you, they were mentioning how already a deputy minister from finance had reached out to them. Is it a suggestion that perhaps headway is being made in these demands that they are making?
Yes, so according to them, just yesterday, when the Minister of Finance had a hint that they'll be having a press conference today, the Deputy Minister of Finance, Awusah, called them and told them that they are working on it, government is working on it, or the Finance Ministry is working on it, so they should be patient enough. But they are saying that no, they've given you how many months now, and you have not resolved their issues. And so they will go ahead with their press conference, lay down whatever they want to lay down, and then whatever thing that you are working on, then you work on it. For they are not listening to what Finance Ministry is saying, because they have given them enough time to do that. And so they have gone ahead with their press conference.
Right.
And so if there should be anything from the ministry, they should do it and just give them the money. All that they're asking for, if it's given to them, then they will, rescind their decision to strike on the 15th of October. Mawuena.
Right then, Evelyn Tingma, my colleague, with those details from one labor group to another. This time, the Civil and Local Government Staff Association, who are demanding the abolishment of the Presidential Office Act 1993. According to Clocks Act, the current act has put excessive powers in the hands of the president. Daniel Opoku is our Labour Affairs correspondent. What was at that news conference? He joins us with a bit more details. Danny, is there...
Hello?
Yes, Daniel, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Is there a pathway to which Clocks Act is looking at having this act abolished?
Right. This has been the call of Clocks Act for some time now. And for the past 2 to 3 years, almost 6 years now, Clocks Act has been calling for the need for government to abolish the Presidential Office Act. Now, when we look at the position of the act now, the act puts excessive power in the hands of the president. So the president does lots of the appointments. He appoints every minister. That's almost every organization within the country or under the public sector is being appointed by the president. And that has been the call of Clocks Act, that excessive power should be abolished. And so when we abolish the act, then clearly the president will not have that excessive power to do those appointments. And consistently, Clocks Act has been talking about that to the extent that even though they are yet to proceed to court to get a proper interpretation of that act, but that is what they have been calling for. And it is also worthy to note that this year's lecture, the Anamco's lecture, they have instituted. They instituted the lecture for about 6 years now, where they talk about neutrality within the civil service. This year has been addressed by the retired Supreme Court Justice John Chidoche, who is currently speaking as I speak to you. And one thing that he has also said, that the Presidential Act was passed by one-sided parliament in 1993. So then the NDC government, which was led by the late former President Jerry John Rawlings, they took the decision to pass the act. And ever since, from 2000 up to now, Justice John Dorsey has expressed surprise that there hasn't been any review of the act from the various presidents from 2001 to 2013, which is an utmost surprise to him. And he believes that the various governments, the various presidents, or any next president to consider the need to review the Presidential Act so that the excessive power in the hands of the president will be reduced.
Daniel Opoku, many thanks. He's our Labour Affairs correspondent, providing details there as to the demand by the Civil and Local Government Staff Association proposing the abolition of the Presidential Office Act and fighting excessive executive powers handed to the country's president. Part of the headline stories we've been bringing to you this afternoon, including a call or a demand by the coalition of civil society organizations, including CDD, CODEO, IDEG, demanding the resignation of 2 EC officials believed to be partisan to engender trust ahead of the 2024 general elections. Well, moving away from this to health now, and one that has been of major concern to a lot of individuals, and the surge in kidney cases and its accompanying mortality rate in Ghana has been described as troubling by health experts at the Komfanochi Teaching Hospital. Every 1 out of 3 patients who are battling kidney failure end up dying. This, according to a nephrologist at the facility, Dr. Elliot Crantin-Tano, is due to the high cost of dialysis. He's been speaking to my colleague Ibrahim Abubakar.
The people admit with kidney disease, or the kidney unit admits with kidney disease to Komfanochi, for instance, about a third of them will die on admission because they cannot afford care. So, and that is the reality, because it is expensive. Ideally, you're supposed to be getting dialysis 3 times a week for the rest of your life, or until you get a kidney transplant done. So if think about it, even if I use, let's say, 500 for easy math, and you need to do it 3 times a week, that comes to 1,500, and in a week. So times 4, that comes to about 6,000 cedis in a month. I mean, how many people get 6,000 in a month? It is the norm. The people we start with are not the ones who continue, even 3 months down the line. Most of them would have stopped. Most of them would have run out of cash.
He expects government to intervene by taking up part of the costs.
If we allow people to pay that much for dialysis, then of course, then they are going to die. But I believe that the young people who are getting these diseases are the people who can work to be able to pay taxes to the same government. So I believe that if there's some support for them, especially when they get a condition which is chronic for their lifetime, so to speak, then even if it's, let's say, 500 and the government can support by, let's say, about 200, 300, I mean, whatever it is that they can support with, I think it will go a long way to be able to help more people to access, the dialysis services, to improve their quality of life, to be able to work, to be able to pay their taxes, to government.
That's nephrologist at the Kwame Nkrumah University, the Konfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital, I beg your pardon, and the management of the Korle Bu Teaching Hospital. They backtracked on the cost review for renal dialysis at the facility. The Premier Hospital, in a notice to the public last week, announced that the cost of dialysis had increased from some 380 to 765.42 cedis, representing more than 100% increase. The most sparked an outcry among the public amid concern about the affordability of treatment, especially in the time of economic crisis. But management of the hospital justified the action. Well, they've been backtracking. There's a statement released from the hospital administration, says that this is to inform the general public and our patients that a price review proposal presented by the renal dialysis unit is yet to receive consideration and approval by management of Korle Bu Teaching Hospital. Management will continue to keep the welfare of our renal patients at the center of any discussion, and we welcome any other support from public-spirited individuals, organizations in this regard. A bit more from the authorities will be on subsequently if you stay with us here on 3FM 92.7. To Parliament now, where the minority has kicked against moves by the Bank of Ghana to hand over the National Investment Bank to the Agricultural Development Bank, ADB. According to the NDC MPs, the move marks of a conflict of interest since the Bank of Ghana owns over 60% stake in ADB. Addressing the media in Parliament, ranking member for the Finance Committee, Isaac Adongo, accused the Nanado administration of seeking to sell NIB to cronies through the back door. The Bolgatanga Central MP shared some ideas with government which he believes can make the troubled NIB stand on its feet without having government to sell it off.
The law requires that if the Bank of Ghana is not satisfied with NIB, it has several options, including placing NIB under administration like they place Unibank under administration, revoke the license of NIB because that is their property. But in revoking the license, they must take steps to ensure that depositors' funds are protected by placing it under receivership and proper supervision to close the face of life. But it is clear from the work that we are seeing and the actions of government that they are not intending to take a regulatory action. They are not intending to place NIB under Act 930, but they are trying to find a backdoor approach without regard to the law that set up NIB. And the law that set up NIB anticipated. Government should just restructure the balance sheet of NIB to swap all the NIB debts that it owes to government and give government equity. Government says it doesn't have money to capitalize the bank, but it has given 500 million debt to NIB. It has given 800 million debt to NIB. The two give you how much? 1.3 billion. Is that not it? It is your money. You own the bank. The money is already sitting there. Commit to saying that that is my contribution towards recapitalization, so that we issue shares for you and move the money. The 2.4 billion, you see that immediately 1.3 would disappear. Is that not?
That's Isaac Adongo. Well, the minority leader, Dr. Kesela Toforson, also had a bit to say in relation to the particular subject. We can take a listen to him as well.
There's the need for us to improve on the governance of the NIB. And so we will also come out with a private members bill to strengthen the governance of the NIB after you have done all of this. That after this, we are going to officially write to the members of the economic mismanagement team, pointing out their incompetence and professing solutions. We'll write to the central bank, the Bank of Ghana, for Addison the printer to be aware that the solution is with Honorable Adongo and his team. We'll write to Ken Oforiatta and IMF, telling them that we are ready to help them fix the situation, because because Ghana is for all of us. And we'll come to the ADB soon.
That's Minority Leader Dr. Keselato Forson ending this afternoon's edition of the news here on 3FM 92.7. Our top stories this afternoon: coalition of CSOs demand resignation of 2 EC commissioners who they believe are politically tainted to resign to engender trust in the Electoral Commission. A lot more news if you log on to 3news.com. Eric Mawuena Egbeta. Bismark Awusah is here ready and waiting with the very latest from the world of business.
This is Business Daily. Good afternoon and welcome to the program. Coming up, government closes any opportunity for bondholders to participate in the reopened domestic exchange program as it hints of not accepting new tenders for this particular exercise. Also, banking industry grapples with soaring non-performing loans at 20%.
NPL rising up again. It means that the capital of these banks, which have already been affected by the debt exchange program, is also going to be impaired again.
Plus, downstream petroleum sector watchers call out National Petroleum Authority for allowing Chinese companies to import over 300 tanker trucks to indulge in fuel haulage in the country.
The MPA is exacerbating the already clumsy and crumbling situation of the transporters within the sector. This is a sector that has excess supply of BRVs.
These headlines and many other stories coming up shortly. Do stay. Thanks for your company. Now to our very first story. Government has closed any opportunity for bondholders to participate in the reopened domestic debt exchange program as it hints of not accepting new tenders for this particular exercise. According to the Finance Ministry, government secured 3.9 billion cedis in the reopened exchange program. The domestic debt exchange program is part of government's efforts to reduce its debt burden and enhance its debt sustainability. The Ministry of Finance stated that it will neither accept any new tenders nor permit revocations or withdrawals. This means that the opportunity for bondholders to participate in the reopened domestic debt exchange program has closed. The settlement date for the new tranches has been set for September 29, 2023. This means that the government will honor the exchange and provide bondholders with the new securities on that date. Some bondholders have resisted this program, even as government continues to defend and court their participation. Government argues it is essential for ensuring the long-term economic health of the country. The domestic debt exchange program is pertinent for government as it strives to fully implement policies for economic growth in the face of the ongoing economic challenges. And that was a Business Desk report. Moving on, Ghana's banking sector is facing soaring non-performing loans, reaching a peak of 20% of all loans. This level, according to data from the Bank of Ghana, has not been witnessed in half a decade. This increase represents a 0.9 percentage point rise from the previous ratio of 19.1% in July 2023. A financial analyst, Patrick Abankwaba, is of the view that the increasing trend of non-performing loans will impair the capital of banks' faith they will suffer during the domestic debt exchange program.
It's a problem. We need to ask ourselves, how did we get here in terms of the banking sector cleanup? It was because most banks were suffering with high NPLs, and for that matter, their capital had been eroded. So if we have NPL rising up again, it means that the capital of these banks, which have already been affected by the debt exchange program, is also going to be impaired again. And NPLs affect the bottom line of banks. And if banks' bottom line are being affected because loans are going bad because of economic conditions, businesses are not able to pay the loans, interest rates are quite high, then the government and the government Bank of Ghana should begin to look at ways and means to support these banks to be able to locate the root cause of these NPLs that are going up. For me, it is critical and must be addressed as soon as possible.
And that was financial analyst Patrick Abankwabang. Downstream petroleum sector watchers call out National Petroleum Authority for allowing Chinese companies to import over 300 tanker trucks to indulge in fuel haulage in the country. This, according to Director of Center for Environmental Management and Sustainability, Benjamin Insia. This will collapse local businesses in the space. He blames the NPA for not protecting Ghanaian investments in the downstream petroleum sector.
Central would not have imported or couldn't have imported these huge numbers of BRVs if they had not had any assurance from NPA. Because if you look at the license regime carefully, it restricts the transport sector to only Ghanaians. So how can a Chinese import vehicles to transport products across the country if they have not had any assurance from the licensing department or the licensing directorate of NPA? So it is unfortunate on the part of NPA to have allowed this. And I think that allowing this also means the NPA is exacerbating the already clumsy and crumbling situation of the transporters within the sector. This is a sector that has excess supply of BRVs, and for that matter, some of them do not even get products to load across the country. So if NPA allows them to import these products, it means that they are reneging on their responsibility to protect the Ghanaian own businesses in the transport sector of the petroleum downstream, and that is bad on the part of NPA. I think that they should rethink about their policy with respect to the local content policy they themselves have put together, especially by the Ministry of Energy.
A director of Center for Environmental Management and Sustainable Energy, Benjamin Insia there. This is still Business Daily with me, Bismark. Awusah. Moving on to other stories, Executive Secretary of the Ghana Real Estate Developers Association, Egbeta, Sami Amegaiwo, has called on players in the real estate space to help fight money laundering. According to him, money laundering through real estate is the new phenomenon, as strict international regulations have made it difficult to use financial institutions. He spoke on the sidelines of the launch of the Lakeside Hills project.
If you look at how the banks operate these days and the insurance companies, you realize they have improved their system, and it is making it very difficult for money launderers to penetrate their system. And so the next avenue that they seem to have identified is the real estate sector. It is a widespread situation. It's not in Ghana alone. It is worldwide. And so I was calling on the attention of estate developers that we are all supposed to fight money laundering. It is not one person's fight. And money laundering doesn't exist in only real estate. It exists in so many sectors, but just that we are in the real estate. So when I meet my people, I want to take this opportunity to bring their mind to it. And then let's all of us fight the canker of money laundering.
And that was Executive Secretary of Egbeta, Samuel Amegaiwo, ending Business Daily with me, Bismark Awusah. Before we go, a recap of our headline story. Government closes any opportunity for bondholders to participate in the reopened domestic debt exchange program as it hints of not accepting new tenders for this particular exercise. These and many other stories when you log on to 3news.com. Urban Blend continues with Black Rasta.